Daith da, Ewi Nakan. Welcome to podcast number 32. Well, things are getting a little back to normal this week. I seem to have a little bit more time on my hands now that the marathon is over. And I'm actually recording this on a Thursday instead of a last minute recording on a Friday. Although, as you know, last week it was an early podcast that I recorded, and that was with John Moon, which, if you haven't heard it, you want to listen to it, because it's lovely listening to him talking about Slade's Bridge when he was young. And I'm sure we'll have him on again, because there will be loads more stories I'm sure he'll think about. I know we was talking after we'd done the recording, and something come up about the well that was in the village there at Slade's, which was just behind where Jack Steer lived. I think might have been in the garden where Andrew Eddy's and Julia's bungalow is now. And I think there was the village pump was close to it as well. And dear old Mooner, he said that his granddad used to go down into the well. He said it was only about 10 foot deep, but they'd get the ladder and go down in the well to clean the pipes out. And when John was a young boy, he would go down to help Grandad. And a funny little story, he said, the first time I ever went up a ladder was when I went down a well, which I thought was brilliant, really. So I'm sure we'll have Mooner on again. But as I say, we recorded that last Wednesday, and as we was running up to the weekend with the marathon. So with last week, I was hoping perhaps we might be a little bit quieter. And then I was planning to drive up on the leave Friday morning. And sure enough, most of the week we were fairly quiet until Friday come, and it was a very busy day. We had a couple of interment of ashes in different directions. I had a funeral at our chapel in the morning. We had funeral directors come down from Essex who asked if we would help them with supplying a hearse and bearers, which we did. We had a memorial service at St Minver, and then also another funeral service in the afternoon at Glyn Valley. So that kind of mucked up my plans a little bit. So I actually ended up going up to London by myself. So what I did, I took all my gear into Glyn Valley, and once my service finished at about 2:30, I jumped in the car and then started heading up to England. To be honest, the journey up wasn't too bad at all, and I got up there in the evening, found my hotel. I'd managed to get a parking space about half a mile away, so unloaded and settled down for the night. And then the next morning, I don't know if for those of you that haven't done the marathon before, but with London, you've got to register before Sunday. And they open on Thursday and go Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And obviously Saturday and Sunday are always very busy. So when I had my breakfast on Saturday, I thought, well, I got all day. It was about 5 miles from my hotel to the XL centre where I had to register. So I thought what I'd do, I'd walk that and just take it steady. And it was lovely. I saw lots of bits of London that I'd never seen before, which was good. Went under the Thames in a little pedestrian tunnel, which was good, by the Cutty Sark there. And got there to register about dinner time. So that was good. I had to sit down for a while, and I thought, right, I might as well gently go back now, which was fine. But I noticed that as I was going back that my heels of my feet was starting to get a bit sore, which I couldn't understand. I had my old trainers on, didn't have my running trainers on. And until I got back to the hotel, I realised I had blooming blisters on both of my heels. And I tell you what, God, I felt so demoralised. I thought, oh no, what an idiot. What am I going to do now? I've got to run 26 miles tomorrow, and I got blisters on me heels. So what I did, I got changed, and I then actually did put on me running trainers, and I headed back into Greenwich for a bit of tea. And I thought, right, what I'm going to do is every now and then just jog, a few paces just to see how bad me heels are. And luckily from that side, it didn't seem too much of a problem because you're running more on the front of your foot. If I had to walk 26 miles, I think I would have been beggared. But as you're running, it wasn't too bad at all. So that was a relief. But I had my tea and then went back to the hotel and got up a few times a night. And every time my heel felt a little bit better. So I did feel a little bit better. But for a while there, I was devastated, I tell you. Now, usually we go up if we're running for Fleet, we go up together as a team on the bus. But there was not many of us running this year for Fleet. And I went up by myself and I found it very intense. You're thinking about the come and run all the time and felt a bit nervous really because it was been a year or two since I did my last marathon, and obviously I ain't getting any younger. And the funny thing is, with the training and everything, 'tis just as much in your mind as 'tis in your legs, and you've got to get the miles in your legs. I did 4 runs a week, getting longer all the time, but the longest training run you do is 3 weeks before the marathon, and it's 20 miles. And then you start to taper down, which in one way is already putting doubt in your mind because you're thinking, crumbs, that was 3 weeks ago. Surely I should have run a bit, a bit more closer to the time than that. Because I remember Bob Parkhouse used to say to me that when he was younger, his longest run was the week before. And then the other thing is, Bob always used to say that the halfway mark was 20 miles. And that the last 6 miles was just as hard as the first 20. So you're thinking to yourself, well, I've only just run 20. You like running into the unknown again kind of thing. So I was quite nervous really, but I got up the next morning and had my light breakfast, and where I'd picked my hotel the night before, I'd got all the gear that I didn't need anymore and walked to the car and put it in the car. So all I had was this bag that you supplied with by the marathon, and you just put basics in there that you need, perhaps, change your clothes, spare shoes or something like that, and you take that with you. Now, where I did muck up a bit, if ever I go away, I always take a six plug extension lead with me, because I think, well, if they're in the plug near the bed and you've got to charge your phone, you've got to charge your running watch, maybe your earphones or whatever, if they got one plug. So I always take this long extension lead. And like a prune, when I got back to my hotel after I'd put the gear in the car, I realised I still had the extension lead with me. But I thought, well, I ain't going to blooming go back again. That's going to have to go into my bag. So I checked out of my hotel. I was going to actually stay. Well, when the gang of us was going up, James, before his injury, we was going to stay up the Sunday as well and then come back on the Monday. But in the end, as it was just me that went up, I thought, well, no point staying up there. And then as it did happen, we did have another funeral service come in on Monday morning. So I had to actually get back anyway on the Sunday night. So, I checked out the hotel. I thought, right, I better get me map on now just to see where I'm going for the start of this race. I wasn't too far away, and got outside, and well, there was just droves of people walking in one direction, all with their marathon bags on their back. So off we went. So I was starting from the red section. They have, I think it's 4 different sections, and they set it off in waves. Now, obviously, I was hoping that Mo Farah would hang on and perhaps run with me, but he went off early. So as we was all walking up there, thousands of us, it was cold, but it wasn't too bad. And then as we was getting nearer to where we had to meet, it started spitting. So when you get there, you have to look for your lorries, because they've got, I don't know how many lorries it is, but they've all got the numbers up above, and what you do, you look for the numbers that coincide with your running number, and you go over there, and then they take your bag, they put it on the lorry, and then all of those lorries then will drive to the end, so that when you get there, you just get all your belongings and everything's fine. So that was fine. I got that sorted. They like you to get there an hour before, which is good, which I did. And I hadn't been there a few minutes, and I say it had started spitting, but then it started pouring down, and it was blooming cold. And of course, you can take, what they do suggest is to take a bit of old jumper or something, which I did, or, that then any clothing you take off, it can be recycled or given to the homeless or anything like that. But some of them was a bit more foresight, shall I say, than me, and they actually took perhaps black bin liners to put over them to keep themselves dry. And I'll tell you what, it was cold. There was a bloke stood next to me, he was shivering, and I saw they got a few big trees there around Blackheath where we was waiting, and there's people just huddled all together under these trees, which was quite funny, really, because up above, there's just branches. There's no leaves there at all. There's no shelter really whatsoever. But I thought, well, I'll go over and stand with by one of they trees. And whereas before you was just nervous about the race and everything like that, as the time was going on, you was just thinking, oh, please, come on, what time is it? I just want to get going and just start running. And I was looking at other people, and all I had on underneath me jumper was me fleet running vest. And you'd see other people there with a couple layers on, others with their running vests, but with a t-shirt underneath. And I thought, I ain't got enough layers here. Am I going to be cold? What's it going to be like? So it was relief when I saw that our wave was being called forward. So we got up to the start for our wave, and off we went. And I started off, and you say that it was still raining quite heavy, but the first 3 miles, really, they just flew by. And I was actually having to tell myself, don't go too fast, because the last thing that you want to do is to get carried away. And it's very easy to do when you're just surrounded by thousands of people there, and go along with the faster ones, and then you pay for it later on in the race. So, but the first 3 miles, it went brilliant. And then after mile 10, it was still going good. I was feeling good. Again, I was still telling myself, hang back, don't go too fast. And again, when I got up to mile 20, I was still feeling good. I thought, this is good. I thought, here, I could almost do a sprint finish, I reckon, down to the finishing line. And, well, before I forget as well, from right when you start, you're just being cheered all the time. The crowds is fantastic. And the first few miles, you going past people's houses, and you got a few there in and out. They out in their front gardens, or got their windows open with the biggest ghetto blasters ever, just pumping out loud music. Some of them have got microphones, them talking to you as you going on, cheering you on. There was a bagpipes, a band of bagpipers there. There was a jazz band on another bit, steel drums. There was a couple of those bands. So all different things just playing as you're going along. And again, another place, there was a pub where there was a group singing live. So it is fantastic. You're just taking it in, and they first few miles, like I say, they just flew by. One of the highlights as well is running around the Cutty Sark. That's always a highlight. And also the other one is running over Tower Bridge. You see it ahead of you. The crowds there on the bridge are fantastic. There's photographers around, so you're grizzling like a fool. So you think, oh, there he is. I'm going to give him a thumbs up. And I did put quite a few photos on my Facebook page there. You'll be able to see where I think most of the times I was smiling, which was good. So, yeah, all was going well. As far as a target time or anything, I didn't have any time set in my mind. I think my main aim, I thought, right, if I can run every mile 10 minutes something, as long as it was under 11 minutes, if it was 10 minutes something, I thought, well, that's going to be about, 4.5 hours, just over. I thought that's what I'm aiming for, but I didn't want to put a target on me because I didn't want to add extra pressure, because you do feel pressurized anyway. And you find if the time's flying and everything's going fine, you ain't looking at your watch. But when the going gets tough, and you keep looking at your watch more, and then you get demoralized. You think, oh, crumbs, I've only run another half a mile or something. But I say the first 20, even 21 miles, everything was fantastic. And I always remember Bob saying to me, 20 miles, that's halfway. So where things started to change really was after mile 21. And then it seemed with every step I took, my legs felt heavier. They was beginning to feel like lead. And then you start looking at your watch more and think, oh God, the doubts then come in your mind. Because I didn't want to stop at all. I wanted to keep running. I've done 4 marathons before. One of them, I had to just walk for a bit. And it's then harder to start again. I thought, I don't want to walk at all. The rest I've run all the time. And I thought, right, I've got to keep running. But the doubt comes into your mind. And then I never looked up, because on the actual route, they've got signs when you pass another mile. They got electronic signs that are mile 19, mile 20, whatever. I'd never even looked at that at all. And I looked at my watch and I had 2 miles to go. I thought, right, I'm nearly there. You begin to feel a little bit better. Well, I then run about another half a mile, and then I come across one of these signs on the roadside, and it said, you got 2 miles to go. And I thought, no. And that was so demoralizing, because I realized then what I should have realized before, really, is that in all the times you do the London Marathon, you always end up running further than 26.2 miles. So if I explain what I mean by that, when you start right at the very beginning, all the way through to the end, on the road, you'll see a blue dotted line. And that blue dotted line, if you keep on that one from start to finish, that's 26.2 miles. But of course, there's thousands of people, and I don't know, it seemed more congested this year than it did in previous years. And I'm not the fastest of runners, but I was getting stuck behind people that were slower than me, because when you apply to do the marathon, one thing you have to do is say what time you think you'll finish. And then that's how they work out which wave they put in. And so I said, I reckon I'd finish about 4.5 hours. But right from the start, like I say, it was so congested, and you having to overtake people, and also you're taking corners wide. And I realized then, after I saw that sign, I thought, oh God, I've run an extra half a mile already. And got it in my head, I ain't looking at any more signs from then on. So, as I say, the legs was getting heavier, feeling like lead, but you slowly get in there, you see Big Ben, and then ahead you see Buckingham Palace, which before I've always missed Buckingham Palace, but I made sure I was looking for it today. So Buckingham Palace, and then you turn around and there's the finish line. And that last bit, it is fantastic. It is so emotional. You're so happy, but then you kind of almost got tears of relief, as well. It's a very emotional time, really. And that's when you start to relax, and that's the bit you enjoy, really. And anyway, over the line I went, and I think it was 4:39. I did. I think I run, was it 26.8 miles, something like that. But I was just happy that it was over. So once you finished, you walk a little bit further, and then they put the medal around your neck, and then you collect your T-shirt, and you then go to the lorry to find your bag. And I went up to the lorry, so I showed Mehdi me number. So they went to get the number, and when they handed it over, he said, "Oh, you're the one with the extension lead." And then he shouted to all his colleagues, "This is the one with the extension lead." Well, I felt a bit of an idiot, I must admit, but there we are. So I got that. Well, when all the time I was up there in London, I didn't see one person I knew, and there was quite a few runners from Wadebridge area, and didn't see anybody I knew. So I went on a bit further, and there was a couple there waiting for other people to come. So I asked them if they'd take a photo of me, which they did. So that was good. And then the next thing I thought, well, I don't want to hang around too long, really. So I started heading off to look for the underground to the journey back to get me car. So we was there, I think it was by Trafalgar Square, and got to the underground entrance, and it was all locked up. And then you look at Trafalgar Square, it was all boarded up around. I don't know whether it was because of the protesters that was in London over the weekend. I mean, we didn't see any of they whatsoever. And then there was this other maid there, and she just run the marathon, and she too was looking for the underground. So she said she got her little her app out on her phone. She said, "Oh, we'll try the next one." So we walked up to the next entrance, and he was locked too. So she said, "Oh no, there's another one further up." So off we went, and we found it. So we then went our separate ways, and I kind of sussed out, I thought, where I was going, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I went over to, there was the chaps there working at the railway. They was at the underground. You had to go and see they anyway, because if you ran the marathon, you had free travel on London transport until 6:30. So I had to go and see him anyway. So I said, right, I've got to get back to Greenwich. So he told me what platform, so that was fine. So I got down, so I got on the train. So I sussed out where I thought I had to get off. But I tell you what, I'd feel like I'm Crocodile Dundee out in the, coming from the wilderness sort of thing. So again, I wasn't too sure. So I saw another bloke. I said, right, where have I got to go now? So he told me, oh, you got to go platform whatever and go that way. So that was fine. And then I got to that destination, and I looked on the map on the wall, and I thought, I can't work this out at all. So I went to see another chap working there. He said, "Oh, no, you can't go no further on the train. You got to catch the bus now." So up the stairs I went, and luckily the bus, he just arrived. So I jumped on again. It was free of charge, which was brilliant. And then I had a short bus journey, and then I jumped out, and then I had about a mile walk to get me car. So got back to me car, and then jumped in. Well, the first hour coming back, I was going through, like, I think it was Kensington and Chelsea or whatever, and the traffic wasn't that busy really, but it seemed like every 100 yards there was a traffic light, and every one of them was red. And I think it took me an hour to do 6 miles, I think. And then I'm just getting on the outskirts of London. 'Tis pouring down with rain. But anyway, I kept going, and stopped for tea, I think Bristol. Well, it was about 9:30, to be honest. And then, anyway, I got home, well, just after midnight. So unloaded the car and got into bed. As usual, didn't have the best night's sleep. And then up first thing in the morning, say we had funeral St. Mimber for an old schoolmate. His dear mum passed away, so it was out there. But St. Mimber, the fantastic thing was, my legs was fine. And, with the race, I was kind of holding back originally, but come the end, I was struggling. But with other marathons I've done, the next day, I haven't been able to walk down the stairs the right way. I've had to come down the stairs backwards. But I walked down, and everything was fine. The only thing that was sore, which is still hurting today, is that left heel is raw still from where I did the walking on the Saturday. But went to church at St. Mimber on the Monday, and feeling good. I must admit, though, that mentally 'tis a very strange time, and I know Nancy Poulter, she run the marathon a lot faster than I did, and I know that she put on her Facebook page, what a mix of emotions it is, and she got it spot on, really, because you're so happy that you did it, but then you're sad in a way that it's all over. And that might sound strange in a way, because, I mean, that training, it's tough going, really. You come home from work and you end up going out running like 8 o'clock at night, which isn't the best thing, really. 'Tis cold, 'tis dark, and every week the runs is getting longer. And but once the clocks change, things change a little bit then, because the lighter evenings kind of coincide with your tapering when the runs ain't so long. And so that last 2 or 3 weeks, that ain't quite so bad. And you forget all the horrible evenings when you've had to go out. But then when you finish it, and like this week, you're kind of in limbo. You think, well, what am I going to do now? Because it's then you realise how much time is actually taken up with all this training. And it's like this week, they always say, I think you must rest for 5 days after a marathon. So I haven't done any exercise at all this week, which part of it, I think, which has been a good thing, which has forced me not to, is this heel is still sore. But you kind of got this time on your hands for a minute. So I'm dagging to get out. Tomorrow night I'm hoping to get out on the push bike or do a little run or something. But it's a very, very strange feelings all round. And, you think, oh, well, sometimes you hesitate. You think, oh, I ain't ever going to do it again. Quite often, as you know from previous podcasts, I say, right, that's it. That's the last time. But it was weird. This time, I never really thought that. The only time, I think, was from about mile 22 to mile 25. And I was thinking, why am I putting myself through this? I don't want to do this again. But I soon got that out of my head. And I have already put in for the ballot for next year. So we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I was better prepared this time. I remember to trim my toenails, because that's something that perhaps I am done in the past. And then you lose 2 or 3 toenails. And so we'll see. But yeah, I've put in for the ballot next year anyway. And we'll see if I get in. I think at this stage, I must just thank everybody. Everybody that's sent lovely messages to myself, and also for James, the poor beggar. He had this injury behind his knee, and you could tell that there was no way he could do the run. And then Dearvan, he went out last Wednesday just for a little trial, just kick around with a few of his mates like they do with the football, and he've ended up on crutches now. We've done his ankle in, so he's really in the wars at the minute. So I did feel sorry for him, and appreciate all the messages we've had. And I say the donations. With the gift aid, I think donations now is over £3,800 going for Fleet, and we'll keep it going for a little while yet. I know a few people said, is the Just Given page still open? And yeah, it is still going, but just like to thank everybody. So I think that sums up my marathon journey for this year. But as always, it's been a tough one in places, lots of ups and downs. Luckily, I haven't had any injuries at all, so all's gone well. But I say this week we was back to work as normal again. We've been out St. Izzy. We've had quite a few of these early morning services again, and another service in our chapel and down Penmount too. So there we have it. As far as the Cornish dialect goes, I actually thought I did say a word just now, which of course a lot of these words you don't think is Cornish dialect, and you think, oh, actually it might well be. And so I think the word I'll add for this week is daggin. And like I said, I was dagging to get out and do a run, or dagging to get out on me push bike again. And 'tis when you're longing to do something. So that's me Cornish dialect word for this week, daggin. And as for Cornish language word, well, I think I'll have a little phrase this week, because we've had to engrave a plate for a coffin, and at the bottom the family have asked for Cosgin Cres, which is Cornish for rest in peace. So I think that's what me Cornish word will be for this week. So there we have it. I hope you found it enjoyable again, or if not, you've most probably nodded off after about 10 minutes, but there we go. I'll leave you now. Speak to you again next week. Hope you'll have a good week. Wish you well. Do Guinness and Kernoba's Ficken.